moved to Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem in 2004 from the US and has since worked with non-governmental organizations, international NGOs, and UN agencies doing participatory research and so on. I'm going to skip down, it's quite a very long one because she's a distinguished person. She has a PhD from Fielding Graduate Institute in Santa Barbara, California, focused on social change and structural inequality, a Master of Arts degree in Intercultural Relations from Lesley University, with emphasis on conflict management and training, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Middle East Studies from the University of California, Los Angeles, during which she's also studied at the American University in Cairo and the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And her book here is Ida in the Middle, which any of you can also have a copy of. I believe there's already, the pile got quite a bit lower. And by the way, I also want to mention there are some videotapes, DVDs, not videotapes, I'm saying, DVDs, which are also obsolete, by the way. But you can also stream Unity Productions films from a website that I will send with our resource list. So, without further ado, Nora. This microphone, of course.
I started reading the book. It's pretty darn good.
Hello everybody, I'm so happy to be here, but I sound fuzzy. I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you sound great.
Can the people hear you there?
I did a double check. My peeps, can we hear okay? Yep, we got another thumbs up. We're good.
Cool.
Patricia's amazing for that. Thank you.
My name is Nora Murad, and I'm going to talk about Palestine today, and I'm going to do so wearing many different hats from different perspectives. For example, I'm going to wear this hat, which doesn't fit me. I'm going to wear the hat and the perspective of a white Jew, because I'm a white Jew. And I'm also going to speak from the perspective of an anti-racist, because I grew up in an anti-racist house, and my parents raised me with a belief and a commitment to fight for equality across race, across gender, across class and language, and all kinds of lines. I'm also going to speak with the hat of a learner. I teach, I'm an educator, but mostly I'm a learner. I have learned about Palestine through formal study and through informal study, and I continue to learn literally every single day about Palestine, just like I hope we all learn about so much in our lives. I'm going to speak today from my hat as a member of the Palestinian community. Because even though I myself am not Palestinian, I have been embraced and included within the Palestinian community in ways I have not been included or felt a sense of belonging in really any other community. That was, first of all, studying in Palestine. It was then marrying into a Palestinian family and becoming a wife, a daughter-in-law, a sister-in-law, and then not too long after becoming the mother of 3 Palestinian daughters. And nothing can change your perspective about race as a white person like me than becoming the mother of children of color in this country, in the United States. Really a changing perspective, changed perspective. So I always wear this hat, the hat of mother of Palestinian girls. And that means when I do anything or see anything, I see it also through their eyes, which includes this hat, the hat of author. I was going to bring all the different hats, but my husband said that was too much to carry, so I brought one hat, and now I've messed up my hair. But that hat is now my intersectional hat, because I see this topic through many different lenses and through many different life experiences, some of which I hope to share with you today. In other words, I'm going to talk here about my book, Ida in the Middle. And this book, while fiction, is very much draws from my 13 years of living in Palestine and raising my daughters in the West Bank under Israeli military occupation. I don't live there anymore, though. That bio needs to be updated. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, where I do social justice work, many different kinds of social justice work, but mostly what I'm doing is supporting teachers to bring Palestine into the classroom. And using this book and many other, not enough truly, but many other good books, but not enough. So this book, Ida in the Middle, is about an 8th grade Palestinian American girl who grew up in a town where she had friends and went to other kids' birthday parties and hung out with them after school like any other kid does. But by the time they got to 7th grade or so, the kids who she'd known all her life started making fun of her name, which they said was an old lady name, and they couldn't pronounce it anyway. But she was cool with that, but she wasn't cool with the ridicule and the stereotyping. And anytime something would happen in the Middle East, for example in Jerusalem or in Gaza, the kids would treat her as if it was her fault. This is really tough for any kid who's struggling to belong at age 13, 14. But for Ida, who was the only Palestinian in her school, she was so devastated, she just wanted to be invisible. She tried to advocate for herself. Her parents tried to advocate for her, but ultimately she decided to move to another school, starting in 8th grade, and there she just didn't tell anyone who she was. She figured she'd go under the radar till she got out of high school. But no, because they had an 8th grade capstone project where Ida had to speak about her life's passion in front of the whole school. Mortifying, absolutely the scariest thing that she could imagine. So while Ida is trying not to do this assignment, she does what we all do when we're stressed out. She eats. And what does she eat? She eats olives. I got these right over there. These olives, as Samira has told us, are not only very important in Palestinian culture, but in this book, the olives are magic. They can transport you to someplace. If you think that's not real, then come eat one and you will be transported. To where? To my mother-in-law's house. That's where these olives transport me. And all of us who have food that we grew up with can be transported to childhood memories, sometimes good and sometimes bad, through food. So Ida is home alone one day. She is stress eating from a jar of olives that had been sent from her mother's family near Jerusalem. And the olives transport her to the life she would have had if her parents had never left Palestine. And there, her older sister is there, her younger sister is there, her mom is there, her dad is there, and she is there, and she belongs. Everybody can pronounce her name. Nobody ignores her or makes fun of her. And she's thinking, this is pretty good. But then she finds out that her house and all the houses in the village are under demolition order from the Israeli authorities. And that's scary. So Ida was scared in America, and then she goes to Palestine and she's scared. But she's stuck. So she goes to school and she sees what school is like in Palestine and how it's different and similar to her school experience in the United States, how the kids are different and similar to the kids she grew up with in the United States. And then by accident, from eating a piece of pizza that's got olives on it, she's transported back to the alternate reality where she had been where she had grown up, been born and grown up in America. And now Ida has to decide, which Ida does she want to be? Who does she want to be? Where is home? And maybe most important, how can she learn to raise her voice against the injustices in both of her homelands? The rest of the book that I didn't tell you about has a little action in it. It gets pretty exciting when the village goes under military siege and Ida is stuck outdoors, far from home, with a little boy that she now has to keep safe. Everything, I'm sorry?
I didn't know, I was asking if you wanted me to click.
No. Everything that happens in this book either happened to our family or to people that we love, to neighbors and others that we knew. And so when kids or adults read the book, I hope you get a perspective on what the daily life is like for kids in Palestine. So kids here can learn from this girl's experience what their age mates go through on a daily basis. Ida is not my first book, but it is the first book. I mean, it's the first book I wrote, but it's not the first book I published. The first book I published is this one, Rest in My Shade, and it is an art poetry book where an olive tree tells the story of her own uprooting. And the illustrations in the book are from Palestinian artists all over the world. Some extremely famous, the most famous Palestinian artists like Suleiman Mansour and Nabil Amani, they're in the book, but also Palestinian artists, young people in Syria, in Berlin, working in all different media. And I have more copies of these, but I mention it because this book clearly is about belonging, and it's about place, and it's about identity. It's about the experience of being uprooted and figuring out how to reroot somewhere. Then I wrote this book. I found myself in Palestine. I found myself in Palestine. And this book originally was called Ajnabi, but my publisher said no one will know what that means, so they changed the title. Ajnabi means foreigner. And in Palestine, there's a lot of people like me who either moved to Palestine because they fell in love with it, or through work, or through marriage, or for faith. There's a lot of foreigners who have, like me, been transformed by the beauty and the urgency of the Palestinian experience. So this book is a nonfiction book with short essays by people from Japan, Sudan, Chile, Colombia, all over the world, who tell their stories, their unique stories about how being engaged with Palestine transformed them. And so that book, I realize now, is also about belonging. It's also about being uprooted. It's also about rerooting and finding a community when your community of origin no longer fits or no longer is comfortable. And so Ida is also about that. And so for the kids that you teach, the themes of identity, belonging, of racism, of finding joy, of being in scary experiences, of learning to be brave. All of that is in this book. And so I started talking with teachers all over the country, including some of the teachers online. Hi, teachers that I know you. Just to learn what the experience has been like to be a Palestinian teacher and to teach Palestinian students, and to try to bring the topic of Palestine into the classroom in the United States. And what I found really shouldn't have surprised me, but it kind of did surprise me. I found that it's really, really hard. And it's hard for reasons that are sometimes difficult to talk about. So I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. What is the elephant in the room when we talk about Palestine? I don't recall my parents or my school ever telling me anything explicitly racist about Palestinians. I don't know where I learned it. I don't know where I learned to be scared, or that something was maybe uncomfortable, or I should be on alert, but I did. And I bet that you may have, especially if you grew up in this country, also had that experience of wondering, wait a second, is this okay? Is this safe? Because there are a few statements that have kind of gotten into the culture here, and I'm going to share with you what they are. One, being fair means not taking sides. Does that feel familiar to anybody? Being fair means not taking sides. And I want to be fair, so I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to get involved. Or I'm going to pretend like I'm not involved because I kind of am as a U.S. taxpayer, but I'm going to pretend like I'm not involved because I want to be fair. And being fair means not taking sides. And then also, including Palestinian narratives, including Palestinians, that might hurt Jews. I want to be fair. I don't want to hurt anybody. So I'm going to stay away from that topic. And a lot of teachers told me just that. We don't want to bring Palestine into the classroom because it might hurt Jews. I want to take these statements or these beliefs, and I want to do some magic on them the way you all, teachers, do magic in your classrooms. And I put some sound effects in here. We'll see if it works. What would happen to these statements if we turn them into, these are limiting statements. What if we turn them into, it didn't work. I have some more sound
I'd be
effects.
surprised our technology.
I know.
You know,
It's,
fighting it.
oops.
Here, you want me to go back?
It's supposed to go, you know, like magic. Because you all do magic in the classroom by taking hard issues and making them into essential questions. And by making them into essential questions, and by calling this a legitimate and important topic for inquiry, we open up discussion instead of closing it down. We open up possibilities instead of silencing them, which is what happens too often. So the essential questions I would ask you to keep in mind for the next 5 minutes while I'm talking, but also as you're thinking about how to bring Palestine into the classroom, are these two. Number one, how can educators approach Israel-Palestine with an anti-racist lens? That's different than saying being fair means not taking sides. It's different. It's saying we're taking a side against racism. We're taking a side believing in equality and justice and rights and dignity for everybody. What would that approach give us as educators? And secondly, how can I ensure that my teaching doesn't cause harm? Those are good essential questions because we can talk about them. If we feel silenced, how can we teach? So teachers are talking about this in terms of the book banning and the, all the nonsense that's going on, the attacks against Black, brown, and queer books. And they're trying to ban not just books, but people. And we, anti-racists, are saying, no, no, no. We're going to stand up for everybody. But even the anti-racists are not standing up for Palestine. And that's work that we have to do. If you read PEN America's brilliant report on censorship in the classroom, It's like a big, long, amazing report. They put it out before Banned Books Week last year's Banned Book Weeks. And Palestine isn't mentioned. But do you think Palestine isn't censored or silenced? Do you think Palestinians themselves aren't censored or silenced? Yes, they are. There are stories all over the country of kids who are wearing hijab at graduation. Their hijabs are pulled off. Or they're wearing keffiyehs, you know, the black and white keffiyehs, and they're told that that's a symbol of violence. These are hard times for Palestinians without allies. And when I say allies, I don't mean allies with Palestinians against anyone. I mean with Palestinians for Palestinians' rights, because everybody's rights, including Palestinians, need to be respected. My book isn't enough to do that, but it's a little teeny contribution. But still, teachers told me there are really big gaps. So I've started to work with Palestinian teachers to fill those gaps. And one thing I've done is to put together a curriculum for teaching my book in 6 to 8 weeks with standalone lessons on issues like anti-Palestinian racism and Palestinian joy that you can take out and use even if you don't teach the book. And let me see if I can figure out how to do this. The curriculum is literally at the designer, so you're seeing like the early, it's like not done, but it will be done, let's say, by Monday or Tuesday, and it will be on my website, of course, absolutely free and available to everyone. If you want to be notified about this resource and other resources, you can scan the barcode on that sign right there, and you'll get on my mailing list. It's only about once a month, and I'll let you know when I do events and when resources are available. But this resource, let me see, I'm not going to be able to do this. Okay. Yeah. Let me scroll without that thing there. Thank you. Yeah, just scroll. So there are lessons. Each lesson has vocabulary, it has essential questions, it has procedures. The procedures have links to Google Docs resources that you can edit for your age or your subject, and it also leads you to the links to really amazing other resources, video, online, other books, and things that you can use to support your own learning and the students' learning. Thank you so much. What's that? What about him? Yeah, just, yes, but just go back to the website. Yeah. Oh, it's not here. Thank you. Also, if you go to the website under teaching resources, which is where the curriculum is going to live, you will find a section called Why Teach About Palestine.
That would be much better. Apparently you can see it from
Can you guys mute yourselves?
So in this section where I teach about Palestine, I took all the reasons teachers told me they can't teach about Palestine, and I gave a kind of a response. So really encouraging people, if you say you don't have time, here's some ideas for making time. If you say you don't know enough information, here's some ways to get more information. This happens to be my daughter. She wrote a sign called "My existence should not be controversial," and she kept it in the car. And whenever there was a demonstration on any issue, she would jump out of the car with the sign. So this, I think, was a Gaza demonstration in Boston. Also on the website, if you scroll down here, other recommended teaching resources. there's a link to a spreadsheet which I made of curated resources. These are lesson plans, portals, books, all kinds of things. I only put the good ones in here. So if you want to teach about Palestine, it's all here with descriptions so you know what age group it is, you know who the author is, etc. And then I also made, with Palestinian teachers, a list of recommended Palestinian children's books, and it's hosted on a Lebanese site called Kotobli, and it's updated. So it's an updated list, again, only the recommended ones. And then also, this is a presentation that I did for Susan a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's on our website as a video.
Yeah, and it's on my website as a video too. And I fixed some of the slides that I messed up in the presentation. This is part of a research project I did with Palestinian teachers where we analyzed the children's books in English that involve Palestine, and we tried to extract themes. And I want to show you just 3 of the themes so that you'll be interested in going to this presentation, which is on my website. This is really... So we called our project a framework for evaluating children's books involving Palestine. Thank you. And we're writing this up as a tool for librarians and educators. Similar to if you read the NCTE book called Teaching and Learning with Diverse Nonfiction Resources, they had different cultural or ethnic or religious groups write short frameworks so that we, who are not from that group, can become more aware of the specific ways that that group struggles to be seen and understood in children's literature. And my favorite is Debbie Reese, who writes about Indigenous children's books. And I learned so much from her and from her framework, and I encourage everyone to go look at her. Oh, thank you. And what we found from analyzing 52 children's books in depth is that it's all about erasure. Palestinians are erased from children's books, but using different nuanced tactics. And that's fascinating because when we become aware of the tactic, we can either choose not to use a particular book because we see that it's problematic, or we can use it critically and to help our students see the same problems in books. And they take that critical awareness and then they apply it to watching the news, for example, or reading the newspaper. And that in turn will lead them and us to be more responsible and informed global citizens, which I think is what we're trying to do as teachers. Thank you. In this one example, which is travel to Israel with Sesame Street, I wrote a whole article about this book, in fact, because it looks like it's inclusive. It looks like it's tolerant and respectful. You have in the middle panel, you can't really see it, but in the middle panel, the Sesame Street character is saying, Jerusalem is a very old city. It is special to people of many religions. And you can see in the picture there that there are Palestinian girls. We know they're Palestinian because some of them are wearing hijab, and they're also wearing Palestinian girls' uniforms. They're in Jerusalem. And you're going, that's great. It's a book about Israel. They're including Palestinians. And in the third panel, the character says, he says something like, Abigail is my friend. She speaks Hebrew. My name is Mahmoud, and I speak Arabic. And you're thinking, that's awesome, because it's true that in Israel they speak Hebrew and Arabic. But by the time you get to the end of the book, you realize that although they give you the impression of inclusion and tolerance, they never say that word, Palestinian. They never say that word. And in fact, Palestinians are presented only as religious, cultural, or linguistic minorities of Israel, and not as a national group in their own right, which is a kind of erasure. But it's nuanced. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to raise all the awareness of educators to the nuances of erasure. Another one that I'll show you is this one. This is a book called ABC's Israel. G is for gold. You see the picture and you think, cool, they're using the Dome of the Rock, a very important Muslim mosque in East Jerusalem. It feels kind of viscerally, it feels inclusive, it feels lovely, it feels like visible. But then read the text. The text says, I didn't bring my glasses. The text says, Muslims from all around the world go there to pray. They believe it marks the place where their leader, the Prophet Muhammad, went up to heaven. Muslims cannot go to the Dome of the Rock because they're not allowed in. Israel has illegally annexed East Jerusalem and taken full control over the Dome of the Rock. If you are from Saudi Arabia, or you're from Jordan, or you're a non-Arab Muslim from Indonesia, or from Africa, or from the United States, you can't go to the Dome of the Rock. This is what we call a lie. This is a lie. For them to say Muslims from all over the world go to the Dome of the Rock, and this is not an old book, and it's a non-fiction book, which I consider particularly unacceptable. For them to put in a non-fiction children's book something that is so blatantly a lie, and it's a lie that covers up the erasure and oppression of Palestinians. I'm a bit emotional about these things and passionate about these things because as educators, we do not want to trick or deceive our children into thinking certain things are true that are not true, and this is not true. I think that's the last one. But let me just see what's here next. Kumbayaism. I love Kumbaya. I grew up with that song. But when it's like this, Kumbayaism, it's also problematic. This happens to be a Lee and Low book, and Lee and Low is one of our most beloved diversity publishers. But this book is horrible. This particular tactic of erasure, Kumbayaism, is not the worst thing in the book. But because it's so prominent in books, I wanted to raise it to your attention. It's a book about an Israeli and a Palestinian child, and they go to camp together and they make friends. That is beautiful. But that is solving a problem that doesn't exist. There's no intercultural, interpersonal, religious, or any problem between children, between Palestinian and Israeli children, or between Jewish and Arab children, or between Muslim and Christian children. It's not a problem. They can go to camp as much as they want, but the Palestinian kid is just still going to go back to living under occupation by the family of the Israeli child. The inequality, the systemic oppression will continue regardless of how many camps the kids go to. So while it's a really nice idea, it's a distraction from the issue. It's a kind of erasure of the real lived experiences of 5 million Palestinians who live under either Israeli occupation or colonization, and another 5 to 7 million who are exiled or refugees because they're not allowed to go back to their homeland, which is now Israel. I know that in this country, these things are sometimes hard to talk about. But they're kind of not hard to talk about. Because equality is not bad for anyone. I'll tell you, as a Jew, I do not need another people to be oppressed for me to feel safe. All of us will be safer when all of us are safe. And we need teachers to stand up and tell this truth to kids, not to scare them away with the idea of a historic, intractable, religious, it's too complicated conflict. No, but to inspire them the way Ida was inspired, to be brave and to take action, to stand up for her own principles for what's right and wrong. And so, I invite you to grab a copy of Ida. I have more if there aren't enough. I have these books as well. And to get on my mailing list if you are interested in knowing either about other events or about teaching materials. And also to be in touch with me if you read the book or use the book or want recommendations of books, or if you want to have the discussion about how to do this work, well, but we need to do it. And I thank you, Susan, for inviting me, and Tracy for you having me, and for all of you listening while I share with you something that I feel passionate about, both as a Jew and as the mother of Palestinians. Teach Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. And you have actually finished with just enough time for questions. I want to let the people know online, I'm sorry we didn't have this flawless hybrid event type of thing, but all of the links and the lesson plans that we talked about in this last hour and a half or so will be available to you. We know who you are because you signed up, and we will provide the links both that she mentioned, that Nora mentioned, and also the links to Monica Iraqi's lesson on Hadith, among other things, and that will also include the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies, links to all kinds of resources. We work closely with Tracy, with even the Maryland State Department of Education on all kinds of initiatives, and work with many states, in fact, in the issues that they deal with. And pretty much they're the same kinds of things across the country. Our aim is to provide good scholarship to you and enjoyable resources also to you as teachers. So thank you so much, and thank you Tracy and Nora and Monica Iraqi.
Susan, can I just share some things?
Sure.
In the chat, Nora, I think your presentation hit pretty hard because we had a teacher sharing that you need to visit every middle school and high school and share what you just shared, what your message is, and that it was just really, it was received very well. They're looking forward to receiving your links and your resources and reviewing your material, so thank you.
Thank you very much. And I should also mention that we have numerous resources, including a database of standards across the United States on all sorts of issues having to do with the Middle East, from literally the beginning of time to the present. That is to say, things that are in the standards across the states, and we work on creating standards-based teaching materials in cooperation with states and districts and so on and so forth. And so we intend actually to do the same thing with this topic, which as she noted is a very difficult one, but it is in the standards across the United States. So it's already in there, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to do it. So thank you so much, and thank you. I think our caterers have departed, but they did a bang-up job as usual.
Yes, they did.
And thank you, Samira, for that wonderful presentation on the food, and she's the one who inspired the caterer to replicate the food from the olive harvest. So thank you so much, Alice, for your presentation.